It was a quiet Saturday morning when I arrived at Grandpa's cabin, nestled deep in the pine-covered hills just outside of Elorn Ridge. The birds were chirping. A fire crackled inside the old stone hearth, and Grandpa was in his rocking chair whittling a piece of cedar. It was the kind of peaceful place where time seemed to stand still. Grandpa had lived there for decades. The cabin had no internet, barely any cell service, and the only neighbors were a mile down the dirt road. At least that's how it used to be, until the developers came. A new neighborhood, Hickory Heights, had popped up a few years back, bringing with it fancy homes, manicured lawns, and worst of all, an HOA. And with that HOA came Karen. Karen Witherspoon was the self-declared queen of Hickory Heights. Short blonde bob, high-waisted khakis, clipboard practically glued to her hand. She took her role very seriously. She was notorious for writing fines for unsightly wind chimes and overgrown shrubs that were an inch too long. No one had expected her to make her way up to Grandpa's cabin. Technically, it was outside the HOA's jurisdiction, but Karen didn't seem to care much for boundaries. That morning, we heard a car door slam. Grandpa looked up from his carving. "We expecting company?" I peeked through the dusty window. No, but we've got a visitor and she's storming up the steps." Before I could say another word, the door burst open. "This structure is in clear violation of County Code 47B, Karen shrieked, waving a stack of papers. "This porch is an eyesore. There's no visible house number. And what is that smell? Is that wood smoke?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Grandpa just stood up slowly. He didn't raise his voice, didn't take a step, just stared her down. "You're trespassing," he said calmly. Karen blinked. "Excuse me. I'm with the H," I muttered. "Yeah, we know." "You have no right to." Before she could finish her rant, a second door creaked open behind Grandpa. Out stepped Sheriff Baines, still chewing the last bite of his sausage biscuit. He dropped by for coffee just like every Saturday. Karen went pale. "Morning," the sheriff said. "Problem here?" Karen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "No, Sheriff," she stammered. "I think I've made a mistake." And then, without another word, she turned on her heel and ran back to her car. We watched as she fumbled with the door, sped down the gravel road, and disappeared. Grandpa turned to me with a half smile. "Well, that was exciting. We thought that would be the end of it. After all, seeing Sheriff Baines standing in our doorway was enough to scare off any busybody with a clipboard and a superiority complex, right?" Wrong. The following Friday, just as the morning mist was lifting from the valley, we heard the rumble of more than one engine. Grandpa and I stepped out onto the porch and watched as a black SUV and a white county truck rolled up the gravel drive. Out stepped Karen, this time in sunglasses and an even tighter grip on her clipboard. She was flanked by a man in a utility vest and another in khakis with a badge clipped to his belt. "Now what?" I muttered. Grandpa didn't say a word. He just lit his pipe and rocked slowly in his chair, waiting. Karen approached like she was on a mission from the president. "Mr. Turner," she said in a shrill voice. "We're here on official business. This is County Inspector Dale and Code Enforcement Officer Marks." The two men nodded. They didn't look nearly as enthusiastic as Karen did. "I've submitted formal complaints regarding the structural integrity of this cabin," she continued. "There are fire risks, hazardous materials, potential environmental violations, and I have every right to." "You don't have any rights here," said a familiar voice. We turned to see Sheriff Baines, again with a biscuit in hand, coming out of the tree lean. "This isn't Hickory Heights, Karen. This land's been in the Turner family since before you were born." Karen stiffened. "This isn't personal, Sheriff. I have documentation." "You always have documentation," Grandpa muttered. Inspector Dale walked up the porch and tapped the wooden beam. He looked around, took a deep breath, and shrugged. "Everything looks solid to me." Smells like cedar and coffee. No violations here. Karen turned red. But the fire pit, the smoke, the wildlife, Marks cut her off. Ma'am, this is private property outside HOA jurisdiction. You're lucky, mister. Turner's being civil about the trespassing. Karen's mouth flapped like a fish out of water. Then she straightened her shoulders and said, I'll escalate this to the county board. Do what you need to do, the sheriff said. But if you step foot on this property again without cause, you'll be facing charges. She didn't run this time, but she walked fast, furious, heels crunching down the gravel, the SUV door slamming shut so hard a squirrel fell out of a tree. Grandpa chuckled. You know, I might actually miss her visits. You're twisted, I said, shaking my head. But something told me she wasn't done yet. After Karen's second visit, things went quiet for a couple of weeks. Almost too quiet. Grandpa kept busy as usual, splitting firewood, brewing strong coffee, and feeding the raccoons like they were his personal pets. But I noticed he started locking the door at night. That was new. And the shotgun was moved a little closer to the front window. You think she'll really come back? I asked one afternoon as we sat on the porch sipping lemonade. Grandpa shrugged. People like her don't let go easy. They don't like being told no. That evening, I went to check the trail cam Grandpa had set up to catch wildlife on the edge of the property. It was mostly deer, the occasional fox, and once a bear scratching its butt on a tree. But this time, there was something else. Grandpa, I called, running back to the cabin with the memory card. You need to see this. We plugged the card into Grandpa's old laptop. The footage from 2 nights ago showed someone sneaking around the woods. Not an animal, a person. Slim, short hair, maybe even a clipboard. Zoom in, Grandpa said. It was blurry, but we both saw it. Karen, we said in unison. She'd circled the cabin from the tree line. Flashlight off, creeping like a raccoon on a mission. She knelt near the propane tank and took pictures, then moved toward the shed. She didn't go inside, thankfully, but she was close. Too close. This is getting out of hand, I said. What's she even hoping to find? Something to use against us, Grandpa said flatly. She's looking for a reason to bring legal heat, maybe claim we're violating some obscure environmental code. We called Sheriff Baines immediately. An hour later, he pulled up in his cruiser, took one look at the footage, and sighed. She's gone from annoying to reckless. She trespassed at night, I said. That's got to be illegal. Oh, it is, the sheriff said, but proving intent's tricky unless she damages something. That said, he looked at Grandpa, if she shows up again, call me. Don't confront her. I'll handle it. Grandpa nodded, but I could see the fire in his eyes. Karen had pushed him too far. The next day, Grandpa installed 2 more trail cams, one near the shed, the other at the start of the driveway. He also cleaned his old hunting rifle, humming like it was just another morning chore. I don't like where this is heading, I told him. I don't either, he said. But Karen's made one mistake. She thinks this place is just a cabin. She forgot it's also a home, and people protect their homes. It happened on a Tuesday. Hot, still air, not a bird in the sky. The kind of day that made everything feel like it was holding its breath. Grandpa and I had just finished stacking a fresh pile of wood by the porch when we heard it. A soft rustle in the woods. Then the crunch of slow, deliberate footsteps on gravel. I glanced at Grandpa. He nodded and reached into the cabin for his binoculars. She's back, he said. And this time, she brought a friend. Sure enough, Karen emerged from the trees wearing all black. Strange for someone so devoted to khaki. Behind her was a man we didn't recognize. Tall, wiry, with a laptop bag slung over his shoulder. The kind of guy who looked like he owned more court records than socks. Karen strutted up to the property line, but stopped short of stepping over it. "Mr. Turner," she shouted. "We have legal cause to inspect the premises under Ordinance 6.0c. Hazardous storage of fuel and potential unregulated animal feeding. You are officially on notice." Grandpa stepped out, calm as always. "You're not county officials. You have no warrant. You're not setting foot on this land. This is civil oversight," Karen yelled. "We have the right to," but just then, the cabin door creaked open. Out walked Sheriff Baines, not through the front, but from inside the cabin, holding a mug, looking like he'd been enjoying the air conditioning and a hot plate of peach cobbler. "Afternoon," he said casually, stepping out onto the porch beside Grandpa. "Funny, I thought we settled this, Karen." Karen's face drained of color. The man beside her turned to leave immediately, mumbling something about a miscommunication. Karen grabbed at his arm, panicked. "Wait, you said, ma'am," the sheriff said, his tone shifting. "You've officially crossed a line. I reviewed the trail cam footage. You trespassed twice. You attempted surveillance without a warrant, and now you've returned with a civilian to enforce fake ordinances." I didn't know," Karen stammered. "I thought I had the right." "You thought wrong." Sheriff Baines pulled out a folded document from his back pocket. "I filed this restraining order an hour ago. You've been served." He handed her the paper. Karen's hands shook. "If you come within 300 feet of this property again, you'll be arrested." Karen opened her mouth to argue, but then something changed. Maybe it was the look in Grandpa's eyes. Maybe it was the sheriff's calm authority. Without another word, she dropped the paper, turned, and bolted into the woods like a raccoon fleeing a dog. Grandpa sipped his coffee. "Think that's the last of her?" The sheriff shrugged. "Maybe. But next time, we'll be ready." I looked around at the quiet woods, the creaking trees, the dusty porch. We weren't just ready, we were home. If watching HOA Karens get humbled makes your soul smile, hit that subscribe button like Grandpa hits firewood. Drop a like if you think the sheriff deserves free coffee for life, and tell us in the comments what you would have done if Karen came barking up your porch.